People who have been watching the channel for a while are going to recognize this motor.
Yeah.
But we tore this down in July of last year, and it was a pretty sorry rebuild that the customer had gotten on this thing.
Yeah. Old worn out motor, and everything was machined wrong. That's all there was to it.
Yeah. So we ended up doing a 383 for the customer.
For what he wanted, I don't think this engine would have ever done that, and it was so far gone, it just wasn't worth the cost to fix it for him.
Yeah, I mean, already 60 over, and not a good 60 over at that. The keyway on the crankshaft worn out.
Yeah, sprocket was loose on there. The heads are rough as can be. They've had valve guides put in. They're worn out again.
It's been sitting here in our shop. I mean, just needed to go in the scrap, but kind of couldn't let go of it.
I just really having a, despite how bad this thing is, I'm just really having a hard time throwing away a 327 block and camel hump heads, because when I was a kid, I mean, I'd have given anything to have a set of camel hump heads for my car. that was cool stuff back then.
So we just wrapped up that 235, and I think kind of the nostalgia of that got us kind of interested in getting this thing going again. So I think today what we need to do is re-tear down. I mean, we just basically have the heads on here and the crank bolted in.
We just one bolt on each side.
So we just need to get this thing ready to go in the oven here. But when we started talking about doing this, I said, let's put some really nice parts in this thing and make it, you know, kind of have some fun with it.
But that's not the 327 I remember. This, what you see here, is what I want to have for an engine when we're done. I want the original block and the original heads and everything to look like it's supposed to be.
We can make it look like it's supposed to be, but I think that we're going to do some fun. I think we're going to have some fun on the inside of this, because we already got to get a new crank. We got to get rods. So we ordered up some new parts here. We've got some top hat sleeves, because this thing is going to have all 8 cylinders sleeved.
Right.
So that was kind of, I mean, you were on board with that.
This kind of experiment for us, I want to try out these top hat sleeves in a block like this, see how they work.
I think it's going to work good. The crankshafts were going to be kind of hard to find. We probably have a stock crank out in the shed, but
they look deep enough.
I thought, let's get something aftermarket. So we have this scary looking thing, super lightweight, and it's actually, I think it's a 100 thousandths longer stroke than this engine would have originally had. Uses a 6-inch connecting rod that is actually a Honda rod journal. So it's normal small block Chevy wrist pin on this end, but this journal size you can see is even smaller than this had originally, and it's actually like a Honda, some kind of Honda connecting rod size.
Yeah, going a little bit smaller, that must be how they gain the extra stroke on this.
Yep.
Over what stock 327 would have been.
No idea if it's going to work. I think we'll do a roller cam. We'll make the heads super nice. We'll do the, you know, we're not going to go crazy on the cam, but we'll do a nice roller setup.
We can put 202 intake valves in this, the 1.6 exhaust. We'll put some screw-in studs and guide plates on it.
Kind of do a mix of your old school performance and...
Yeah, and when we get done, hopefully it looks pretty much like a original 327 on the outside. Of course, we'll probably have an aluminum intake on it anyway. Are we going to fuel inject this thing?
We'll see.
See when we get there?
We'll see when we get there, but maybe, I mean, this is probably going to end up getting sold when we're done with it.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we have anything of our own we want to put it in right now, do we?
No, but we could, maybe we'll find something or we'll sell it, but I think this will be a fun build series to make the boomer happy and maybe make the zillennial happy and me. And anyway, let's get to it. This is going to be cool. These are some nice parts.
Yeah, I got a text from your sister, our bookkeeper, telling me about all the money you've been racking up on the company credit card buying parts for this thing.
You know, I've heard Mom tell a story about when you two first got together and the massive whiteboard you had of every single debt you had and who you had to pay and when you had to pay them, and there was no money to pay them.
Yeah, there was no money to pay. I don't even want to think about that anymore.
Obviously, it stressed the cleaning guy out just even mentioning the time of his life when he was trying to crawl back out of debt from starting this business. And we don't want you guys to have to go through that same level of stress, and that's why this video is sponsored by PDS Debt. PDS Debt provides options to consolidate your debts into one low monthly payment so that you don't have to have a giant whiteboard in your house keeping track of who you owe, how much you owe them, when those payments are due, and how much interest you're racking up. Everyone with $10,000 or more of eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit are accepted. I know you're thinking it might sound too good to be true, or maybe you're just thinking you're so far in over your head that there's no point even trying to climb out. Chances are you may have made payment after payment, and it just seems like those balances aren't going down, so you might be a little bit skeptical when somebody reaches out their hand to help you live debt-free. But that's where PDS Debt can help. They're a top-rated company on Google, they have an A+ rating on the Better Business Bureau, and they're sponsoring this video to reach out a helping hand to pull you out of the hole that the system wants to keep you in. Right now, PDS Debt is offering a free debt analysis to our viewers, and it only takes 30 seconds. So head on over to pdsdebt.com/jimsmachine to get your free debt assessment today. As much as I'm giving my dad a hard time right now, I know that was a really stressful part of his life and his early career, and we don't want you to go through the same thing. So if you have found yourself in that situation, this may be an opportunity for you to get out of it. So again, visit pdsdebt.com/jimsmachine to get your free debt assessment today. Thank you to PDS Debt for sponsoring this video.
One bolt there. One bolt over there. Wish all the heads could come off that easy. Got this locked down
No?
so it doesn't flip. There's one off. There's the other.
This is the one that you could still see the marks from the boring bar at the bottom through the crosshatch.
Yeah, even look at the chamfer on the top here. What was that all about?
I have no idea. But it's gonna look pretty when we're done. So on the back here, it has this plug that was all brazed up, and I'll put some footage in that I took a while back when I was trying to investigate what was going on there. They had two plugs back in there. I'm surprised that the second plug wasn't blocking the feed from that back cam bearing to the left oil galley. But it still leaked regardless. They had all kinds of silicone and everything on it. So that's gonna be something we're gonna have to investigate a little bit when we get this block cleaned up. It's kind of nice that we already basically have this apart.
Well, yeah, because we just stuck it back together with a couple bolts. Did we do that?
I don't know, must have. There's a pig mat in there. Alrighty.
It's not even all oily.
Hey, you put the oil pump back on and everything?
Looks like it. I think I was mostly just trying to get rid of parts.
Timing cover. Yeah, here's that variable valve timing gear that this had.
Is that still on there?
Yeah,
Does it still work?
still works.
That is a nice boulder.
Let's see, I wonder were the caps numbered on this? I hope they were.
Yeah, big numbers. 1, 2, 3. There's at least 1, 2, 3.
Well, I don't think we want to renumber them right now in case they got mixed up somewhere along the way. How come there's no bearings?
The front one had a bearing.
Did it?
Yeah.
There we go.
This crank is junk, right?
Well, the only way it'd be any good, it'd have to be welded and built up, and I don't know as though it's worth doing that.
Well, I ain't gonna use it.
Okay, well you might set it aside.
This guy can't get rid of anything.
Just set it aside in case we end up needing it.
I ain't using it in this though. Cam back in.
Okay, that's scrap.
Knock the cam bearings out.
Yeah.
Oh, that plug come out. It's coming. There it is.
There's that shot of the high quality surface finish on the cylinders from the last guy. Always the last guy.
It's always the last guy. It's always his fault. Whoever it is.
Ready?
Yeah. Battery's dead.
Come on, man.
Is it starting?
Barely.
Should I keep going?
Take it off. Let's put some heat on it. Try it. Twisted it off.
Nice.
So we'll end up having to drill that one.
What's
Okay.
with me always twisting them off?
I don't know.
Okay, so while you're doing this, walk us through what you're doing, why you're doing it.
Well, once upon a time, I used to have a tool to do this with, and it worked a little bit faster. But we want to pull the press-in stud out, and we're going to cut these towers down and thread them for guide plates and screw-in studs. Because if we're going to put a bigger cam in this, it's going to be highly unlikely that these press-in studs are going to hold without pulling out of there on their own. So anyway, I just stacked some spacers up on there, put a, it's a rod nut on there. A lot of times you can just find some used ones and are good enough for this. And if you run the impact the right way, it should pull that stud. Till you run out of threads anyway. And then I'll have to put a little more spacer on here.
How many of these have you done over the years?
Oh. I can't even count how many there might have been back in the day when we did these types of heads all the time. And I remember when I first started out, you had to wrench all them things out of there. We didn't have the impact at that time.
Did you have new dirt too?
We had brand new dirt back then, so it went a little bit easier. Smart Alec. But these do come out easier right now than if we wait until after we've baked the heads. Because when you bake them, it seems like it cooks that stuff in, and it really is hard to get them out.
Guess we didn't look before. Do you think any had started to pull yet?
I looked, and I don't think they had. I'm surprised.
Sometimes they already have started by the time.
By the time we see them.
Sloppy.
Yeah, a little bit. What do you think? Maybe we could knurl them.
Yeah.
That's kind of an old school thing.
Let's not. Okay.
Pretty loose.
Scary loose.
Scary loose. Most likely, you're going to need some oversized guides.
Okay.
I don't know what the deal was with whoever last did this motor, and I usually don't try to trash somebody else's machine work, but there is nothing right on this engine. I haven't seen a single thing that is right.
So we'll repeat on the other head, get all the studs out, get all the guides out, and it'll go in the oven. So we'll get the block in, the heads are in, we'll get the block in, get the other parts in, and bake them overnight, bake all the oil and grease off of them, and then we can get them glass beaded or steel abraded, whichever, depending on the head or the block. And that way they're nice and clean. We won't, we can do a thorough inspection and make sure we don't miss anything. All right, so the parts have been baked now. Basically this oven just cooks it at 650 degrees for 4 to 6 hours usually, and that bakes off all the paint, all the grease, cooks out all the oil so that it's nice and dry to do our abrasive cleaning. And you can see there, these parts had nice orange paint on them, and now they have no paint on them. Now we want to get all this cleaned up really well so that we can actually do a thorough inspection and check for cracks and make sure that these parts are actually rebuildable. The heads are small enough that we're going to run them in our steel shot blaster. So the way this machine works is we'll clamp the cylinder head in here, and this cage here is going to rotate, and there's an impeller down in the bottom that is going to shoot up tiny little abrasive steel shot against the parts. I don't know if you can get a shot of that. And it's going to abrasively clean the cylinder head. So we try to get the head in here so it's not moving around a whole lot, just so it stays put, basically. And I'll turn on the dust collector so that it doesn't make a cloud of dust in the shop. And we'll just run those 10 minutes or so. So there are shops out there that have steel shot machines that are big enough to do an engine block, but we do not have one big enough for an engine block, so our engine blocks we have to actually put in the blast cabinet here and glass bead. And again, you can see yesterday this was just a nice orange painted block. It was all greasy and oily. Today it's completely dry and ready to be blasted. Luckily a 327 is kind of small. The kid that helps us out and is doing a lot of this cleaning stuff had to do that big block Mopar a while back, and I'm sure that was not fun. All right, so gonna go ahead and glass bead this, which is not a very enjoyable experience. As far as cleaning in the water jackets here, glass bead is really what does the best. There's really not a good way to clean the backside unless it's abrasively. Your hot tank will do a little bit, but not as much as glass beads. Now, we should have a nice clean head. This one had, somewhere along the way, something went through this engine and probably dinged up the top of the piston, and piston was shoving it into the chamber. That's all just cosmetic. It won't matter, but could have been an issue somewhere along the way. Put this head in. Looks like it'll stay okay. Back to class meeting.
Shiny.
So now that the heads have ran through the steel abrader, they're nice and clean. I mean, look like brand new castings essentially, except for the fact that they're 59 years old and have been molested by who knows how many previous people along the way doing valve jobs. Somewhere in a previous life, something apparently came apart in this cylinder. Doesn't look like it caused too much damage up here, but just kind of bounced around in the cylinder there. Same thing over here. All of that is within where the gasket seals, so it's really just cosmetic damage. These intake seats have all been ground down who knows how many times. They're definitely lower than they should be. Somewhere along the way, somebody put exhaust seats in, tried to do a bunch of blending. Honestly, the angles and everything on here look pretty terrible. We'll end up going to a larger exhaust seat, so we'll pull these out and cut a counterbore for a little bit bigger exhaust seat. With any luck, by going to a 202 intake valve, there'll be, by going a little bit bigger on the diameter, it'll get us to where we don't have to put intake seats in, but we'll kind of evaluate that a little bit more as we get closer. That's all going to be in another video. In this video, I just wanted to kind of inspect things and see if we have anything to work with. One other thing, I don't know if it'll show up on the video at all or not, but kind of looks like these were surfaced on a belt sander. We can see the vertical lines running across the surface. It would be a surfacer like the one we have over there in the corner that back in the day was kind of an accepted method of resurfacing cylinder heads, but at this point we just use it for exhaust manifolds. But let's go ahead and do a quick Magnaflux here. We're not expecting to find any cracks because the engine had been running before and the only damage was a broken piston skirt, but we want to check and see what we have to work with anyway. Take the yoke here and some iron filings, just Magnaflux powder. And I'm just going to look real close here. And again, I'm not expecting to find anything. I don't see any cracks here. Again, wasn't really expecting to, but it's always something that we check. On the top side of the heads here, one thing thinking back to when we tore that engine down in July, I think it was kind of leaking some oil out of this hole here where they had drilled through into the top of the head here when they apparently had some kind of accessory that needed to bolt on there. So we'll end up plugging that so that there's no more leak there. Looking at the tops of the bolt holes, there are a few that are a little bit chewed up, almost kind of collapsed a little bit. This one in particular has a spot that is kind of worn away. So at the very least, we'll put hard washers on when we reinstall these heads, but we may even go in and kind of spot face these a little bit just to clean them up. I mean, this one you can see collapsing pretty bad there. So that may be something that we do. We'll be cutting down the rocker stud boss here for our screw-in studs. We'll have to go in and drill out the push rod hole and tapping for the screw-in studs. I'm not sure, we'll have to look here. We talked we may have to go to some oversized valve guides just based on how those other ones came out. These heads also did have some broken springs on them, and there's a couple of these spring pads here that are kind of ate up a little bit. So all in all, I think we do have something here we can work with. We wish this stuff was in better condition when it came in, but that's kind of why it's here. And it'll be kind of fun to show you guys what it really takes to do a set of these heads up nice, because we don't really get the opportunity to as often anymore because it costs so much money in labor. And when you can get some affordable aftermarket aluminum cylinder heads, that's the direction that most customers go, as opposed to paying the money that it costs in labor and parts to do up a set of heads like this. So it'll be kind of fun to show that as the series progresses. So let's set these heads aside and let's look over the block a little bit. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and start with magnafluxing the block here. There's nothing I'm expecting to be cracked here, because supposedly was running even after he blew the skirt off the piston, but you never know.
The ones that are least likely to be cracked are the ones that surprise you with a crack.
Yeah. I don't think there'll be anything. I wondered about that one, whichever hole he broke a piston on, but it wasn't even hardly a catastrophic failure. I don't know if you could even really classify it as that.
He drove the thing home, so it can't be that bad.
Okay, let me run through this real quick. Twisted off the plug here on the water passage, so we're gonna have to figure out how to extract that. It's kind of been a trend for me lately, twisting stuff off. I'm gonna put a big old X on that so I don't forget.
See if I can get this on my toe. Ow.
It kind of pulls into. It kind of pulls into the seam there between the raise and the cast iron, but
It would naturally pull into that area anyway, but I do believe that it's truly separated. It's not stuck to the cast iron like it should be.
also being a tapered plug, and they had two of them in there. You remember that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
By the time they got two plugs in there, it may have been pushing it out right away
Yeah,
again
they
anyway.
may have wedged those in an effort to try to not make it leak. You always want to give it just a little extra torque on it, and probably they'd have been better off having it too loose than too tight. Not much to see there.
I think I pointed this out in the last video, but this block must have had some kind of defects from the factory, and they welded it at the factory there on the deck. Actually left a little bit of splatter down in there. So on the back side of the motor here are the 3 plugs for the oil galleys.
Gallery will get nailed because it's supposed to be gallery.
I don't
Not
really
galley.
give a crap what it's supposed to be.
I don't either,
Because they know what I'm talking about.
we know what we're talking about, but somebody always brings that up.
When this thing came in originally, he mentioned that he thought there was a rear main seal leak.
Yeah.
and we get into it.
And you could see it was all oily in the back
Right.
when we first got this engine in.
And we get into it and noticed that actually somebody has been in here putting some, what I'm going to call booger braze, and not doing a very good job. So the assumption is that either the last shop really butchered it when they took that plug out,
Yeah.
or when they installed the plug, they way over tightened it and broke the side of it out,
Yeah.
cracked it.
It's one of two things. They either had trouble getting it out and butchered that up, but I wonder if they didn't, when they put it in, if they didn't over tighten it and split and busted that piece of the casting off. Because you also have this plug over here that they put in that you twisted off trying to get it out because it's wedged in there so tight.
So maybe they liked putting their plugs in way too tight. Regardless, they made an attempt at a repair. It actually had 2 plugs in it when I took it apart, and we got to figure out how to fix that. And that's part of why we originally told the customer, like, we need to junk this block because it's going to cost who knows how much money to fix that.
Right. On top of everything else that was wrong with it. It's
On
just
top of the long list of things that are wrong with this block. Okay. So the problem is, by the time we, grind this out or whatever we're going to have to do to get to where there's good cast iron for a new plug to seal, it's going to end up blocking off this oil passage that comes from the rear cam bearing over to that bank of lifters. Kind of walk us through the oil passage here, the way the oil gets to where it gets from the pump.
Well, let's see. The pump pumps the oil across to the filter, goes through the filter, back across, I believe, this passage here, goes up towards the top here, and then, yeah, there's an angle passage here that comes in and opens that up back to this center gallery down through the block. And that in turn feeds to the cam bearings and to the main bearings of the crank, which then feed to the rod journals. But then this hole here off of each side, where this comes into the cam bearing here, feeds the galleries that go down both sides for the lifters.
Okay. So if we block this off by putting a plug in ahead of, or behind that, essentially,
we're going to block all the lifters on the driver's side of this block.
well, that doesn't sound good.
No, we can't do that.
Okay.
So we have to find some way to block this off where the damage is so no oil even gets to that area. So we won't have a leak there.
Right.
But now we got to find a place for a new passage to feed that left-hand bank of lifters.
One idea we had was essentially tap for a fitting here, and then it's this side.
Yeah.
Tap for a fitting, kind of here, and just put a little
A little crossover tube
yeah.
between the two.
And that seems pretty easy, but
Yeah, pretty easy, but
everybody's gonna know it's there.
yeah. Which we don't care if they know it's there as long as it gets the job done, but it's just one more thing to have to come up with fittings and make everything fit right and come together and
Kind of a weird way to go about it.
yeah. So,
Something that would definitely make the next guy go, what the
okay, the second plan that wouldn't work on all engines, but I think will work out pretty well on this. Your small box Chevrolets are grooved behind every single cam bearing. So the oil comes from that center gallery and goes around the outside of the cam bearing to come down to the mains. So every one of the cam bearings looks just like this one does. So what we decided is instead of having the oil feed here, let's drill a hole on the next cam bearing back behind, and it will feed to that lifter gallery that way.
Okay, well, me being as smart as I am, noticed one more thing. Us machinists, especially the ones with engineering degrees, think we're pretty hot stuff here.
I think you just think too much is all it amounts to.
Probably so. But I'm standing here looking at this, and I'm like, huh. The rear main, all of the other mains feed from that cam bearing hole, but the rear main feeds directly from, I assume, that same passage that goes up towards the top.
Yeah, right off this passage here. It's drilled back into it.
And I'm guessing that that's because they wanted that main to be fed so that down here it only feeds the galleries in the other main.
So that only has to feed the lifters. On this main, if we do what we're wanting to do, it's going to have to feed the lifters and the main bearing, because this one has a separate passage direct off the main feed there for that bearing. So are we going to have an issue that it won't flow enough oil through those holes to feed the lifters and the main?
Honestly, I doubt it. I don't know what you think. I kind of doubt it. I think it's going to flow enough oil no matter what we do. But it kind of makes me wonder.
Yeah.
So should we just go ahead and drill every single one?
Well, that I think is going to be our answer to that, because we can drill that same passage on mains 2, 3, and 4 at this same angle from the back, and then we can come around on the front side here, and we can come in and drill from right here into that passage, and now we can feed those lifters off of 4 mains instead of just one, spread out the flow and not starve any one of them for oil.
And there will be some actual engineer who explains to us why everything we're doing is wrong. But let's see if it works.
Yeah, that's what this motor is all about. This is a motor that normally we would have thrown away because it's just cost prohibitive to fix this, but we want to play with it a little bit, experiment. That's how we learn new things, is by doing things a little bit out of the ordinary and see what works and what doesn't.
And I think we're actually looking forward to all of the comments, which sometimes there's a good handful that you got to take with a grain of salt, and we know that. But there's also a good handful of comments that we get that actually make us really think, go, oh, that maybe we need to look a little closer.
Maybe we need to look a little closer with what input we get through the comments.
Okay. So anyway, we got to counterbore this and retap it. We need to get a new pipe thread tap. Ugh. But we're going to counterbore that so that we can actually get down in deep enough to good solid cast iron that has not been disturbed. Then we'll plug that, but I think before we do that, we're going to try to plug this passage that goes over there.
Yeah, let's plug every passage back here that is no longer going to be used, just in case there's a defect in there that's going to create an oil leak.
Okay, so we'll plug the cross passage, we'll fix this so that we can plug it, and then we'll drill 4 new holes in the block.
Yeah, 4 new holes drilled across from the cam bearing opening to the lifter gallery.
So where do we start?
Well, I was looking at this a little earlier, and I think if we lay this drill bit up in here, just use it as a straight edge, and I would like to kind of make a mark in that cam bearing opening where the center of that gallery would be. I think that might help us guide it, because this is all going to be by hand. We don't have any kind of a jig with any of the machines or anything to do this, so it's totally going to be free-handed.
Winging it.
Yeah, we're winging it, but that gallery is large enough, and with the groove that's behind the cam bearing there, I think we can line it up by hand and make it happen. So,
are you worried about air bubbles?
not right at the moment. That might be a little high.
I think it looks pretty good from my angle. Maybe. I mean, you're kind of just trying to figure out where to line up the hole, and then we'll have to get an angle the drill bit correctly as well. And it's not like there's any water or anything, unless we're way off.
Yeah, we'd
With
have
the
to be
driller
pretty
hole.
far off to hit water or anything like that.
I actually hope there is somebody who specializes in fluids and oil passages and stuff like that and can tell us why it will or won't work. Somebody YouTube certified.
I don't think that's terribly thick across there
I don't
to
think
drill.
so,
Probably a good 1/4 of an inch.
and we could be off.
Yeah, we can be
Quite a
off
bit.
quite a bit and still hit the passage. Oil's not smart. It doesn't know that it has to go down the middle or anything like that.
Yet we're worried about it being smart and knowing that it needs to go
It needs to go the right place.
the right place.
Okay, where's our drill? So are we starting with the smaller one here?
Yeah. And you sharpen that?
This is one I sharpened with our Amazon drill bit sharpener. It actually works pretty well. I hope I got the angle right on that, but the bits I've used it on
So far it
does
works.
pretty well for us. I'm going to kind of lay across the corner here between the bottom of the cylinder and the main.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Did you go through
I
something?
went through something. Can you see in from...
I see a drill bit.
Can you?
Yeah. Oh.
Is it turning?
Yeah. You hit that pretty good.
Is it close to center?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, so this is 3/16. Since we're going to do 4 of them here, I don't think there's any reason to go clear up to the 1/4 inch.
Okay.
Let's just make them all 3/16. And I think it'll flow way more than enough oil to get the job done and still not starve the mains at this point.
You are not quite as centered on that one.
I was going to say, am I to the down
Yeah,
side or
you're
upside?
well, to the upside of the engine. Like you said, the oil ain't smart.
Yeah, I think it'll find its way.
Still a little bit biased towards the top of the engine, or kind of towards
Yeah.
this side of the
But
bore going down.
but we
through,
definitely hit the galley.
Yeah, you hit.
Gallery. So now we're going to do the front one from this direction. And this should be a little easier to see. I think that angle looks good, doesn't it?
Either bring the end of the bit up a tiny bit or lower your. Yeah.
Like that. Right there. A little more. Like there.
We gotta plug the front of the galley, and you just drill the hole in.
Aren't I past that?
No.
I think it'll just clear.
Tap it, put a plug in, and if it has a passage, great, and if it doesn't,
Yeah, and if it doesn't, we've got the others, but I think it'll still have passage. I don't think you're gonna be putting your plug in that deep. Don't tap it so deep that you have to bury the plug in there.
Yeah.
When you get done, it'd be perfectly fine if the plug sticks up just a little bit, because that one's back far enough. This is one, a lot of times, a timing gear will hit on the top edge up here. But this is recessed back far enough that even if the plug is only in 2/3 of the threads of the plug, it'll clear out here, and we got plenty of room in there.
okay.
So this worked good.
Nice.
We're gonna have to remember that.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 new holes.
4 new holes to feed that gallery on that side. And with 4 of them feeding, I'm more confident that we're not going to steal any excessive amount of oil away from the mains.
Yeah.
Well, this whole engine is an experiment. Everything we're doing here.
It's just not right to put Honda parts in a small block Chevy.
No,
is
it is not right. It's going to be like that poor kid at the drag race when I told him his car was all wrong because his motor was mounted sideways in the front.
Emotional damage.
It probably broke his
At
heart.
least you weren't the famous YouTube cleaning guy at that point.
That's right.
You were just a nobody at that point.
I hope he doesn't remember me.
Yeah. It's like that's the guy.
Okay, now what do we need to do?
Plug this one.
Plug that one. That's possibly going to be a little tougher.
Yep. I bet that oil is just going to go down to the cam bearing out of that passage, and it's just going to make a turn right out to the lifters, and it'll never even get here.
Never get a drop there.
Not a single drop. Missed, maybe.
Missed out of it, huh?
We'll have to run really tight clearances.
Well, we were planning on running some tighter clearances, weren't we?
I don't know what we're planning. Okay.
No, that came out very well.
Walk me through whatever this bizarre looking setup is.
Okay, we're going to put in one of these tapered, they're actually made out of cast iron, little tapered plug that is often used to repair cracks, to stitch cracks with. But we're going to put it in that hole right there. We want to prevent any oil from coming to the back portion of this where the defect is here in the block.
Because by the time we get this plugged, it may be further into the bore than where this cross passage comes over.
And if this is left open, it's going to backfeed pressurized oil back in that, and we'll have the same problem with oil getting up here where things are not the way they should be.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to tap that for this little tapered repair plug. This is a special taper tap you use down in there. And obviously I can't get a tap handle on that with where it's at. And it's actually so close here. I do have some special sockets that'll go over a tap like that to hold them, but there's not room for it. So I found this little Torx socket that for some reason I've already ground it way down from something else I was doing sometime. I'm going to put that over the end like that, and then I'm going to use the male end to go back in there, and then I'm going to put my little 1/4-inch drive ratchet on here, and I think I can drive it from there and hold it steady and hopefully not break that tap, because this could all go south in a hurry if I break that tap in there.
If you do that, we're
We're-
getting out the JB weld and pretending it never
Yeah,
was in there.
we'll JB weld it, and, which is probably what we should
We're
have done
calling
to
up
begin
the
with.
guy who brazed this the last time.
So normally when you tap or machine in cast iron, you just do it dry. But I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of cutting oil to this. I think it may give us just that little bit of extra that we're going to need.
Make you feel better.
Yeah, makes me feel better anyway.
So
we're gonna-
normally with these taps, you use a tapered reamer first
Yeah,
too, right?
run a tapered reamer through there first. But this hole is already a little bit large for what we're doing. So I'm not going to do the tapered reamer first. I'm just going to do it with the tap.
Okay.
Just very careful. Kind of let it find its own way. Definitely not going to force anything. Let's back that back out, see what it looks like. So yeah, it's hardly done anything at this point.
How tight did it feel?
It was just barely starting to
Feel like it was doing
feel like it was starting to cut just a little bit. Nothing significant at all. And you can see there's virtually no chips here yet. We'll just keep going here. There, I can just now kind of feel it starting to bite in, give me a little resistance.
How do you know how much?
It's just all feel.
40 years.
40 years of feel.
Alright, well this is really hard to get the camera to pick up and get in focus, but we are getting some threads down in there. So does the plug screw in yet?
So yeah, finger tight, we can go that far. So I think we could go ahead and tap a few more threads deeper in there. How are we looking there? Is it sticking through?
3/8. How are we going to cut it off after we get it installed?
On this side,
Yeah.
we're going to have to use a little Dremel tool and just cut it, grind it away. Carefully cut it and grind it away. Yeah, that looks nice. And I can see in the gallery down there where it bottomed out against the other side. I'll just run this in finger tight. You look up in there, you think we can take 3/8 of an inch off of it?
Yeah, I think probably at least.
Okay, so let's go do that. Now, let me take that over here and we'll grind the end just a little bit.
Are those just rusty, or do they have some kind of coating on them?
No, they look like they have almost like a copper coating on them. I wonder if it isn't to keep it from rusting.
Or maybe it's something to help seal it.
Help slide in a little easier. Okay, now we've got that shortened, let's test fit it one last time. Yeah, there we are, finger tight, and it still gives us a few threads to tighten it up down in there.
Well, this style, it'd be nice if we could have used the style that twists off when you get it.
Right.
But all those that you had were smaller diameter.
Okay, I'm going to give this a liberal coating of Loctite. I'm going to put some on the...
Just had to bring politics up.
Yeah. There we go. My fat fingers wouldn't fit down in there. Oop. Almost thought it twisted off. There, that feels pretty good. Let's stop right there.
Doesn't even stick through on this side.
Good. Okay, so we've got that big old square head of that screw sticking up there that we got to get out of the way. We could just get in there with the die grinder and cut that off, but I think I'm going to take a hacksaw blade here and carefully cut that, and then we won't have so much to grind. You know, I'm close enough there. I think I just break that off. Here it goes. There it is. It's off. So now we've got to very carefully grind that. There's not much room here for that cam bearing to seal that off, and we don't want to end up with any opening that would pressurize the backside of the cam and have a massive oil leak, or an internal oil leak. Cam plug would keep it from going to the outside, but if we push a bunch of oil into there, we're just losing oil pressure. This is not quite as small the cut-off wheel as I would like, but I'm going to go in here and see if I can kind of somewhat recreate the groove that was cut behind the cam bearing. I'm not expecting it to come out perfect, but we've got to get enough of that off so we can get a new cam bearing in there. Okay, I think
Take something and kind of.
look at that. Got that piece right off.
Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! SpongeBob, careful! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob!
Yeah, that got it. Okay, so I think I got 95% of it ground out, back out of there, and didn't get over into any of the surface that holds the cam bearing. So I think we need to stop while we're ahead there. That's clean where your thumb is there now. That's clean where the cam bearing will come across there and bridge the gap. And I think it'll be fine.
All we're really doing here is trying to go in and counterbore the top of that until we're down to good cast iron where we can pick up with the thread tap and
Right.
tap for a new plug.
Yeah, we just need to be past all of the repair that was done on that to get it to where a plug will seal good.
It was a good attempt at a repair. It's better than we could do brazen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It still didn't freaking work though.
Yeah,
They put a lot of work into
They
it.
put in an awful lot of work for something that didn't work. Maybe we're
Hopefully
doing the same
it-
thing.
I was just thinking that. Hopefully
Maybe
not
we're
doing
just
the
adding
same
to it.
thing.
That's cutting real nice.
Yeah. We're about, let's get my head in it, about down past their repair, I think.
I saw a guy that caught his beard in a angle grinder.
Yeah.
Didn't look very good.
I saw a guy who got his pants wrapped up in one. The top of our counterbore is cutting good cast iron,
Okay.
I think, all the way around. So should we go past our repair?
I have mixed feelings about that.
Okay, so we decided to go so that our counterbore goes just past where our new plug is. And that way we have good solid block material for threads for our 1/4-inch pipe plug to block off the passage. And then maybe we'll find a freeze plug or something along those lines to put in back here as a safety.
Yeah.
But it should be irrelevant.
Yeah, that should never see any oil, but just in case, it's not that much harder to put one in and give us a little more insurance.
Ready?
Yeah. Here's another 1/4-inch. What does it look like?
It looks like we are just to the bottom of our pipe plug with just like the very bottom because they're
Okay.
kind of angled.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed with where how the pipe plug looks because it almost looks seamless, which is how those should look when they're.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
So do you want to go just a little farther?
Yeah, I would go so you're just past that.
Okay, let's go just a little bit further.
You'll have to do your sonic test on this before we bore it, just see what we've got to work with.
Yeah. So what? Another 100,000?
Or 50, see what you got.
So go to like 310.
Yeah.
I'd go just a little bit further.
Okay.
Now our chamfer starts just south of the deal.
That chamfer, the way that bit's sharpened, should make the tap start easy too.
Okay. That little mark, if I can get it to focus, that's where our plug is. So remember, probably if we had put it through a little bit farther, left it not quite as,
This area in here,
yeah, like if we had left the plug not,
if we hadn't
had
cut it
left
quite
a
as
little
short.
longer, we would have had a nice seamless cut. But it doesn't
Okay.
matter because it's going to seal
Yeah, it's gonna seal regardless.
regardless.
And with that Loctite we put on it, even if there was a gap somewhere, that Loctite
Yeah.
will fill it in because we used the bearing and sleeve retainer.
So here, this is, I assume, where it was all leaking out before, just kind of the seam between their braze and their cast iron.
Yeah, there's quite a line there.
Yeah. We have to order a new pipe plug tap because we've got a crappy one, but we want to do it. We need
Well,
a new one.
anytime we do a repair like this, you want everything as good as you can possibly be. So, you know, a new tap is not that much money. Let's get a nice new sharp one that cuts perfect threads.
How do you feel about all the work that we did on this scrap block?
I'm still think it's a crazy idea what we're doing, but I'm real happy with the way it came out. I'm feeling real good about that.
Little bit less scrap at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Less likely to become scrap.
Less likely to become scrap. I don't see any reason at all what we've done here won't work.
Yeah, so we'll go on to tap that for pipe threads to put another plug in there, and probably stack some freeze plugs in behind it.
Yeah, let's put it down in the bottom there, tap it, put a plug in just like these other two are, just like it was originally, other than it'll be down in deep. And then that's bored the right size to where we could put some cup type freeze plugs in there, just as a safety in case something leaked. It'll be one more means of keeping the oil inside. So, yeah, that repair they did on there, I'm quite impressed that they managed to build up that much brass on there. But you can see almost like they did it in layers, and there's all kinds of gaps in there.
Yeah, well, and I think it just didn't.
Well, and you see
It didn't make the bond.
that looks like a crack right across there.
Yeah.
Where it came together, because it's not bonded together, or it did crack away.
Yeah. This is going to be kind of an experiment, but maybe kind of a fun old school slash a mix of old school, new school build.
Yeah, because it'll have new school stuff on the inside and old school look on the outside. And our viewers out there that were really upset about us throwing away a 327 block, hopefully it'll make them happy that we've resurrected the thing one more time. And,
Lots of work to go on this thing, though.
yeah.
We'll bore it. We'll deck it. I mean, we got to put all 8 sleeves in.
Yeah.
Outsource the line hone, probably. I'm not sure with that crank, with it being 100 thousandths longer stroke, but using the Honda rod journals, I don't know if you have to do any clearancing at all or not, but we'll have to check all that.
Yeah, we'll find out when we start test assembling it.
So, and the heads are going to be, there's a lot of work in those heads to make them pretty. Yeah. And they may never be pretty, but they'll be functional. Yeah. I think we can make them look pretty nice.
They'll look nice when you get done. You get all the seats put in those and new valves and some good springs on them. They'll be nice looking heads.
Just kind of hurts your soul working with 60-year-old stuff that's been with it's too many other machinists along the way.
It's always nice to be the first guy that gets to work on something like that. Makes it so much easier because at this point, not only are we having to deal with them being worn out, but we're also dealing with everybody else's prior machine work on it. And this block was not a good example of machine work.
This whole engine.
Yeah, the whole engine.
So we're going to try to fix that, give it at least one more life.
Yeah.
Go from there.
Yeah.
See how it goes. Stay tuned. This series will probably drag on for a little bit, but we'll try to move along on it when we have time.
Right, because you still got to get that Chrysler motor done.
Yep.
We've got a F-head Jeep motor coming up.
And a baby.
And your baby.
Yeah, we're screwed. We're in big trouble now. Alrighty.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
See you later.
My focus is you, love. It's not hard to choose.